Hi, my name is Sonia, and I'm an undergraduate at Duke University. And my project was on developing a novel measure to evaluate teachers' responses to their students' emotions. So I'm going to start off with a little anecdote because my research was really inspired by my experience working as a daycare teacher. So I've had the opportunity to work at two different preschools, one at my hometown in Maryland called Kitty Academy, and another here in Durham called Durham Early School. And something I noticed really quickly was that the two schools treated students' emotions very, very differently. These kids were very young, like ages 0 to 6, and so they cried a lot. The teachers at Kitty Academy seemed to get frustrated whenever the kids cried and responded with something like, "Stop crying, it's not a big deal." Whereas at Durham Early Schools, the teachers embraced the kids crying and responded with something like, "It's okay to be sad. Can I give you a hug?" So two very different responses. And I was really interested in seeing potentially how those kind of different responses affected then the students' ability to manage their own emotions. And so there was a ton of research on this and how it worked for parents and their children, and that the way that parents react to their kids' emotions really matters. So when parents responded supportively, their children ended up being better able to manage their own emotions. On the other hand, when parents invalidated or dismissed or even punished their child for feeling a certain way, then the child learned that emotions, or at least negative ones, were bad and something that they needed to suppress. But then there was almost no research on teachers, which was surprising because kids spend, 7+ hours a day at school. But then as I began designing my study to sort of relate teachers' reactions to their students' development of emotion regulation skills, I ran into this problem and realized why there was such a huge gap. And it was because it was really difficult to sort of measure teachers' responses to their students' emotions. One way would be to go into classrooms and observe teacher-student interactions, but this requires a lot of time and money. And an easier way would be to give teachers some sort of a questionnaire that asks them to evaluate themselves on how they deal with their students' emotions. However, a high quality version of that questionnaire didn't exist. This topic has just been so understudied that a self-report questionnaire hasn't even been made. And when you don't have the tools to study something, then or to measure something, then you can't study it. And so I shifted my original research question a little bit, and my new goal was to develop such a self-report measure to evaluate these childhood teachers' responses to their students' emotions. And then after brainstorming with my mentors in lab, we came up with a simple 8-item self-report scale. And I'm just going to walk you through one sample item. So basically it starts with the hypothetical situation. So for anger, when I respond to a student's anger, I typically, and then they're given 5 different response options, and they're asked to rate on a scale from almost always A to almost always B, which of the two they're more frequently done in the past in their own teaching history. And these 5 sort of items for each emotion actually map onto James Gross's process model of emotion regulation, where he entails 5 different strategies that people use to manage their emotions. And so I've tested this draft measure on a sample of 200 preschool and elementary school teachers, and currently working on analyzing the data still to see if this scale is valid and reliable. And if it is, then there are so many different questions you could answer with this tool. So for example, which ways of responding are best for their students' academic and social success? Do teachers respond differently to their male versus female students? Um, and even like, how do teachers' beliefs about emotions affect how they respond? And long term, hopefully, this measure and the questions it answers can inform school policies and interventions on what we need to ensure that students' emotional needs are being supported at school.